Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1, Shiny Rocks, written by a lone donut. When it comes to faster-than-light travel, you will be presented with two possibilities. One is to puncture space-time with a concentrated burst of energy, and to slide along on the reality-reduced pocket you create, skipping along at superluminal velocities by abusing the laws of physics. Most species end up calling this a skip drive, or some derivative of that. The other way is to fold space in on itself and using high levels of energy create a pathway between them. These are frequently called wormholes, and the devices that create them are usually simplified to gates. While the skip drive is arguably the most energy efficient, it is slower than the gate system, though the gates have their own issue that make them less feasible. Now, the power requirements is the biggest hurdle for either of these forms of travel. Once you understand the physics, though, understanding this principle usually leads to the understanding of the most complicated matters of the universe, such as splitting the atom, or developing stable microsingularities. This leads to the next problem to arise, however, the materials. For a skip drive, the development is pretty straightforward. Once a species can find a way to keep the craft structurally intact for the transition, usually through a grasp of titanium alloys, gate technology allows you to transport a vessel through no skip drive, reducing the cost of production. But comes with another material component issue, that being the need for gold or platinum. These two rare metals lead to the true challenge of the gate system. No one is completely sure what unique properties of platinum and gold it is that creates the perfect conditions to conduct the energy generated by wormholes and keep it stable, but it is a key component. For most species, however, this creates a problem. While these metals are exceptional conductors, their rarity combined with the relative malleability to other metals makes them unfit for large-scale usage. And with no other real usage in the scale of manufacturing, by the time a species has reached the need for faster-than-light speed, both metals have been generally left alone, or discarded. Some might make their way into the market of high-end electronics, but for the most part there are no reserves for these metals. Then there is the Sol system. Somewhere along the way, the universe decided to throw caution to the wind and predeterminately create a galactic superpower located in a relatively dead region of the galaxy. With no immediate stellar neighbors, the inhabitants of Sol Prime, humans on the planet they called Earth, became poised to conquer. Though it was not to be easy, as a Deathworlder planet was crowded with predators, and even the species that aren't predatory are dangerous. According to one report, there was a large 2-meter-tall land animal with antlers, a thick hide, and a poor temperament that could shrug off being hit by land transport. This creature, which again was a land animal, was hunted by a mammalian sea animal, adding the higher-than-average gravity, the natural satellite that was too close and could affect the tides of the planet, and you had a recipe for disaster. The species should have risen to a level of sapience, and yet there was one with at least 2 others being studied and considered for potential uplifting. No, through a miracle, the humans managed to survive to become the dominant species, and this was where the universe played its other sick joke. Not only was Earth, the Sol asteroid belt, and many of the planets around absolutely loaded with gold, the humans were obsessed with it, not because of some metalworking technique they developed, or because of its later use as an electrical conductor. No, gold was popular with humans because of one simple reason. They thought it looked nice. Humans used it as currency, then backed to get currency with it. Then once they realized the physical attractiveness of the rock was useless and created a digital currency exchange, many humans still collected it fervently, believing one day it would be worth something due to its shine. The first human expeditions to mine their asteroid belt weren't driven by species betterment, or to gather critical resources to evolve their species. The promise of shiny rock was what made the human business owners, and the luster of the rock was enough to convince them that they should go get more of it. To create a gate large enough for a person to walk through, the least effective use of the gate, you would require around 5 kilograms of gold. For most species, this is a massive waste of this much gold, and the large orbiting gates used for transporting massive fleets or interstellar trading ships are focused on. One of these gates will require about 250 kilograms of gold, a little less if you can offset this with a 10% platinum. To have 2 gates is considered a hallmark of entering the FTL club. To have 4 is considered ideal, and to have anything more than 10 is considered the marker of a truly great empire. Almost no species operate more than a handful of personal gates. There are 7 gates in the Sol system alone, around all major planets, with nearly 100 small person-sized gates across the system. The closest star system near their homeworld all have at least 2 gates, most having more. Overall, there are nearly 50 total human stellar gates in service. Humans have even experimented with having a single-person gates on ships as well, having them successfully built 2 of these ships, though they were considered so opulent that actually sending them to most places ended up being seen as an insult. Overnight, humans became the intergalactic sensation, with species clamoring to buy just a little of the excess gold supply they possessed. They rose to fame and power, and were given access to technology to make their gates better, effective, and sold their designs and construction the galaxy over. From backwater nobodies to galactic superpowers within a few years, one of the richest and most respected nations in the galactic political sphere. All because of their love for shiny rocks. End of story. Story number 2. Trial by Kombat, written by Kaiser 5243. Hellwolder and I lounged about in our CHU after a long day of training. As Fulben, a marsupial species about 5.5 feet tall, we had been selected as one of the first aliens to partake in the military exchange program with the humans. Our physiology was one of the closest to the humans, and while they tended to be larger and stronger, our lithe bodies, excellent night vision, and sensitive hearing made us perfect scouts for the infantry units. I can't imagine why so many of them had such an issue climbing the rope. It's really not that hard, Hellwolder mused as he lay in his bed exhausted. Well, to be fair, they were much denser than we are, and don't forget that we can't lift half the weight they can. Did you see Riley running with that log? I almost passed out from exhaustion watching him, I replied without turning. My right ear twitched as someone knocked politely on the door. Sounds like 5 or 6 of them. I wonder what they want, he asked quizzically as he stood to answer the door. Sugar babies, how we doing? Specialist Samson shouted as he barged into the room. He had a large television in his hands and a smell of grease and cheese wafted in from outside. Got a place I can set this down? I nodded, confused, and pointed to a small desk in the corner. 4 more humans piled in behind him, one carrying a stack of square boxes that the smell seemed to be coming from, another with a strange black rectangular device with lots of wires, and the last 2 carried cases that jingled when they stepped with the sound of glass bottles. The humans immediately took over the space. Samson and Tanner began to hook up the television to the device, while Franklin and O'Connor began pouring out bottles from the cases and placing them in our refrigerator. Stevens looked around for a moment before placing the square box on my bed. Hellwolder and I looked on in confusion. Gentlemen, may I ask what you're doing? Alarm clear in my voice. Specialist Samson stopped and turned around suddenly, very serious. Hellwolder, Montero, you have proven yourselves worthy of our respect and companionships in the time since your arrival. The only thing left to do is a sacred ritual that will forever bind your souls to ours. O'Connor, the sacred nectar. Calmly and with great reverence, O'Connor began to hand out bottles from the refrigerator. He handed one to each of us, and we stood in a circle. The humans twisted the caps off the bottles, and we followed suit. Specialist Samson lifted his bottle in the air. To our sugar babies, may they bring the enemy hell. The humans clanked the bottles to each other in the middle of the circle, motioning for us to do the same as well. They then chugged the bubbling liquid at an alarming speed. Hellwolder and I attempted to do so as well, but I was forced to stop to breathe while Hellwolder coughed and foam came out of his nose, causing the humans to laugh uproariously. "Don't worry, man, it gets easier. And trust me, you'll have lots of practice." Tanner laughed, clapping the embarrassed Hellwolder on the back. "All right, grab some pizza while we finish preparations for the final part." Plates were handed out and the boxes on the bed were opened as the humans fell on the raw dough and cheese abominations inside. We both looked unsure as we were handed slices of this greasy meat-covered heart attack. The smell was pleasant, though, so after watching the humans devour their slices, I shrugged and took a bite. It was fantastic. My ears stood straight out of my eyes, dilated in pleasure. Encouraged by my reaction, Hellwolder also took a bite of his, letting out a small squeak of satisfaction. "Crap's good, right?" Tanner said as he grabbed another. "Okay, gentlemen, it's time," Samson said, turning from the television. "Time for what?" I asked with trepidation. "The final stage of human bonding ceremony. Trial by combat." He hit the button on the controller, and a loud voice shouted from the television, "Mortal Kombat!" End of story. I would quickly like to thank the Tier 5 members, Marky, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Arnolds, Oakfield, Lord Azrakul, and It's Difficult to Pronounce. Thank you very much.